Welcome those who are here. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming. I am the creative director of what I call the soap. The soap has many different meanings. It's about clean and sober living, and um, it stands for Thriving, Healing, Empowered Seeds of Addicted Parents. So, I am Erica Hamlet. I was born and raised in Baltimore City. Um, and I am a product of the 80s era, crack era epidemic in Baltimore in the city. Both of my parents were drug users, and I just wanted to figure out a way that I could help the younger me in someone today. Trying to figure out what I think I would have needed back then for support to help make me whole. So, i.e., that's kind of where the soap developed from. Um, and I am like many other children and now adults whose parents or caregivers battled with addiction, alcohol abuse, and or drug abuse. And it's like, where are we now, kind of thing, and how can we reach back and help? So that is where the soap came from. I am a peer, and a peer is someone who shares like experiences. And I believe we relate better to individuals who have been through things that we can relate to, sometimes even unspoken things, when you gather a group of people that have shared experience. I'm just going to give like a brief backstory of who am I. Again, I said I'm Erica Hamlet, Executive Director of The Soap, creator of Drug Awareness Course, and a peer support advocate and a drug awareness instructor. Pain to purpose is what I call it. I can recall my mother and father being heavily into their addiction, me being too afraid and embarrassed to seek help, and suffered in silence. I don't know why my loved ones were struggling with drug addiction. I dare not share the secret. I didn't know of any place to go to seek help, to talk to, or who I could talk to. So I created the soap. I am a peer. I speak from lived experiences. Now, my hope is to create solutions that we can learn and heal together. So that's where it came from. I created a drug awareness course, and what it is just simply, let me go back so I can share my screen. So, what it is just simply kind of what drugs are, what drugs do, because as a child, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get my mom to and dad to stop using. I'm like, if they love me, they would just stop, right? It's just that simple. Like, they should just stop using because they love me so much. But once we kind of figure out what drugs do to the body and the brain in the simplest forms and break it down for children to understand, or somebody who's never had an experience with someone battling addiction, it makes it more understandable. Like, it's not something that they're choosing over you. It's something that they really need help to break away from, to leave. And it's an ongoing process. You may be clean for a month, and then the next thing you know, something happens and triggers you, and you're right back in that cycle of addiction again. But as children, we don't understand that because nobody teaches us the fundamentals. It is not rocket science. You don't have to go into grave detail, but I believe that children should know certain aspects of why their parents and caregivers do what they do, and it's not them choosing the drugs over them. It's really a sickness and or like a disease. Um, so we're going to start off. So that's me. I already introduced myself. What my mission is, and my mission is basically to create simple drug awareness so that children who are caught up in the grips of addictions with their caregivers, they are like the first liners in this war. They are home with them every day. They are seeing the struggles and battles that they're dealing with. And when parents go off to treatment, caregivers go off to treatment, I'm feeling like children are kind of left behind. Where is family treatment? Where are the resources that are kind of like dumbed down and kid friendly so that children can follow along with the process? I was 16 years old, 17 years old when my mom went to treatment, and I was old enough to kind of follow the 12-step program with her, read the literature on my own, go to meetings and learn on my own. But if you're 10, 11, 13, 14, you may not really understand what's going on. So I believe family treatment is important because when parents go to treatment, they go for 30, 60, 90 days, maybe long term. So I've been caught up in the grips of addiction with my caregiver, with my parent. Then they snatch me away. You go off to get clean for 30, 60, 90 days. And then when you come back, you're chasing meetings and I don't understand what's going on in these meetings. So again, where does that leave me? So that's kind of where I wanted to fill the void. We can no longer avoid the fact that this is happening. Now that the opioid crisis has boomed and we're losing people at an alarming rate, there seems to be great attention around it. But this has been happening in Brown and Black communities for a very long time. And it wasn't a state of emergency back then when our parents were leaving us, when our children were suffering. So I want people to understand that not just opioids, but prescription drugs people are abusing. Crack cocaine's been around for years. And the legal drug, alcohol, is also killing the people in our community. So we need focus and attention to be on drugs overall and not just opioids, because people have been dying from drugs for years. And now here we are with some statistics. 1 in 4 children in the US are exposed to drug and alcohols in their immediate family, in their homes. 25% of American children grow up in households where abuse is present. We're going to talk a little bit about the adverse childhood experience as well, and how when these things, that these traumatic experiences that you go through, like being the child of a drug abuser, or if your parent is alcoholic, how that molds and shapes your mind, your brain, your receptors, all the way into adulthood. In the city of Baltimore, a class of about 30 children. Can you guess how many of those children live in a home where their parent is battling abuse, substance abuse? At least 8 of them. Every second of every hour of every day, 2 children are born into a family with alcohol and drug use. Failure to treat the child could leave them void of coping skills, vulnerable to lifelong cycles of physical and emotional abuse. Providing services or the ability to talk to other children and peers that are facing similar situations so children don't feel isolated can change the course of someone's life. All right, that's just talking about the interactive course. And now I'm going to ask some questions. So when you think of people who are addicted to drugs, and there are some derogatory terms out here that people use that we probably never even think is a derogatory term. So I just thought it was a game that I would play, asking what are some of the terms that you hear people use about drug abusers? How many street names for drugs and those who use them can you think of?
Junkie is the main one.
Mm-hmm. You get junkies all the time.
Yeah, addict, crackhead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So on this list we came up with dope fiends, users, druggie, pothead, addicts, junkies, crackheads, cokehead, pill popper. Now, let's go down here. Crackhead, addict, shooter, syrup head. So we got to think of the new drugs and the new terminologies that people are using. And this is that some of these terms are derogatory because we have to understand that people that are struggling and battling with addiction, they're human too. So we have to be mindful about the terminology that we use. And or if we are in earshot of someone whose mom or grandma is addicted to drugs, we don't want to use the term as junkie or crackhead or dope fiend to them, because then that makes them not want to express how they feel or open up about it. And that's not what we want children to do. We want children to be able to have an open conversation so that they can seek the help and support that they need. So this is why I felt like I needed to bring this up in the course. And we also need to be mindful of this terminology that our children are using that we may not be aware of. So if they're just having a general conversation, they're talking about things like syrup and pills, we may not necessarily think that they're talking about using drugs or using substances, but they are. So we have to get caught up with the times of what's going on and what's being said, what kind of drugs are out here. Because syrup is lean, a sherm head, a stoner. So all of these things I think are important when we think about the fundamentals of learning drugs, drug usage, and being aware of what's going on. And then, so I'm not gonna go over each one, but I wanna focus on certain ones. So in this course, we talk about drugs, again, like I said, and the effects that it has on your body and your brain. So crack cocaine, the street terminology for crack cocaine. Anybody know some of the street names for crack cocaine?
Rock.
Rock, nuggets, scramble, cookies, yams, jelly beans. Right. So if your kid is having a conversation about jelly beans and nuggets, might not only be McDonald's, right? Right. So a free-base form of cocaine made into rock crystal. It can be heated, inhaled, or smoked. With its intense high, it is the most addictive form of cocaine. Its effects are felt almost immediately with heightened alertness, euphoria-like state. This high is intense, but only lasts for a short while, a few minutes to an hour, increasing the likelihood of addiction. Crack cocaine interferes with the way the brain processes chemicals. One needs more and more of the drug just to feel functional. Crack abuse can lead to severe withdrawal symptoms and cravings, and many people will continue to use the drug to get rid of the symptoms. So how many of us knew that your first hit of crack cocaine, you are immediately addicted? How many of us knew that?
I knew it. I knew it because my children's father was addicted to crack, and you know, he's clean and sober, you know, now, but he when he's told his story, he said, you know, the minute he got that first hit, he said it's like his whole life just turned at 180 degrees.
Yep.
And that was all that mattered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So thank you for sharing, Lynn, and I'm so glad that he's clean. But that is it. This is the reason why I felt like this course was necessary, because we need to know the effects that drug takes on the body and the brain. It may not necessarily be something that you want to do, but if your body is craving it, if your mind is telling you it needs it, then you're going to go out there and you're going to do everything you can to get it. So we want to make people aware of the effects of drugs so that we can support addicts and those struggling to figure out whether they want rehab or treatment, not enabling them, but supporting them through the process. And the way we do that is by better understanding what effects drugs have on our bodies. Now we've come to, before we move to opioids, I wanted to explain the crack era. The recreational solid from cocaine first started in poor neighborhoods, Baltimore being one, in the mid-'80s, called the crack epidemic. In 1986, the Anti-Drug Act made crack cocaine the only drug for which the first offense of simple possession can trigger a felony mandatory minimum sentence. Possession of 5 grams of crack will trigger a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence. So that's just a little known fact about crack cocaine and the devastation that it's caused on Black and brown communities. And this has been since the 80s. So we're going to move on to opioids. Opioids are a big topic of discussion today. Opioids, oxy, hillbilly heroin, juice, dillies, jackpot, murder 8, and friend. These are all street names for opioids. Opioid is a prescription painkiller, sometimes called narcotics, such as fentanyl, tramadol, methadone, OxyContin, and Vicodin, often prescribed after surgery and to people recovering from serious injury. So when we talk about drugs, we're not just talking about street drugs. We're talking about the drugs that are in some of our cabinets today that we overtake. And do you know one of the main people affected by prescription painkillers? Who knows? The elderly. The elderly are ODing from prescription pain medicine because they can't remember how they took the medicine, the last time they took the medicine, and it becomes a simple OD. And elderly people are dying at an alarming rate from taking too much prescribed pain medication. Something to think about. Opioid chemicals are on cells already in the brain and throughout the body. When this occurs, they make you feel good. They relax you. Opioids feed these receptors, lessening the pain. Mixing medication or mixing with alcohol can have an adverse effect as well as prolonged or misuse. So if you use them too long or you don't take them correctly, you can easily become addicted and or simply OD by taking too much medication or taking medication with things that you shouldn't, like alcohol. Anybody learning anything today? Anybody learn anything new so far? All right. All right, let's move on to the next one. No, let's not move on. So we're going to talk about what we can do when we know that, wait, that's the Lean Act. We're going to talk about that next. But we also want to know, how do we save someone's life? How do we save someone's life if we think they've overdosed? Anyone know? Or we can call 911 immediately. When there's an overdose from opioids, we can administer what we call Narcan. And I also want you to know that you can be Narcan trained through the Baltimore City Health Department. Now, because of COVID, excuse me, they're doing it virtually. But if you go to their website, you can register for their training days. Tiffany Scott is also hosting a opioid training on March the 4th at Penn North Library from 12 to 1. You can go and you can register. It's an hour long and it's in person. I believe that everyone should be Narcan trained. Everyone should have Narcan carried in their car, in their purse, because it could save a life. I believe children, age appropriately, should be taught how to use and administer Narcan. And I believe CPR and first aid should be part of school curriculum. Most of these children are home with their parents and caregivers. We know that we've been home in the pandemic for almost 2 years, now off and on. And most of the time, these children are home alone with their parents. So I call them the frontliners. And it should be an essential tool for them to know how to use Narcan if their parent happens to OD. They should know what to do besides calling 911, because by the time 911 gets there, the person could be gone. So these are just some things that you can do. You can call 911 immediately, administer naloxone, Narcan, if available. It is a safe medication that can quickly stop an opioid overdose. It can be injected into the muscle or sprayed into the nose to rapidly block the effects of the opioid to the body. Try to keep the person awoke and breathing. Allow the person on their side to prevent choking. Stay with the person until emergency workers arrive. This is another little tidbit. What people don't understand is when people are having, when people have OD'd or had too much of an opioid, it is not like a necessarily convulsing, foaming at the mouth that you see on TV kind of reaction. Most of the time, these people appear to be in a very deep sleep and their breathing becomes very shallow. So, I mean, we can say if you're at a party and you're partying and you're drinking and drugs are around freely, we can't necessarily say pay attention to your friends. If they start falling asleep, they may not be asleep. But again, just simple awareness to know that a deep sleep person may not be asleep, they may actually be OD. So that's always a tidbit I want people to understand. And they're like, well, they just fell asleep. No, they probably were actually, the effects of the drug was probably taken over. If you hear them snoring or rattling, you can try to arouse them by taking your knuckles and rubbing it on their sternum as hard as you can. If they don't react, because that it's nerves there that make you have a natural reaction. If they don't react immediately, then you probably need to call 911, especially if you know you've been engaging in reckless drug use or activity. Now, let's talk about lean. Lean is syrup, scissor, lines, dirty Sprite, purple drink, Texas tea. Given the name of the way the users lean when the high sets in. Lean is a syrup. It is purple in color and it is poured into drinks. They pour it into baby bottles. They pour it into their sodas and their juices. A lot of rappers and entertainers engage in and promote the use of lean. Lean is a very addictive drug. It is definitely a drug. And it is very popular amongst young teenage population. Many celebrities singers, rappers, and professional athletes talk about their use of lean, though it is highly addictive and has resulted in hospitalization and even death. Its popularity, along with other ingredients used to make it, like candy and soda, draws children as young as 13 and 14 to experiment with the drug. Over-the-counter OTC medications containing DHM caused the government to create what they call the PACT Act. The PACT Act is a law that targets over-the-counter drugs that contain DHM due to it being easily accessible and used in creating recreational drugs. Once the law takes effect, all vendors will have to check the buyer's identification if they appear to be under the age of 25. Those under the age of 18 will only be able to purchase a product with DMX if they have a prescription. This legislation will combat the growing trend of DXM by preventing young people from easily purchasing the product that contains DHM. So drugs like Robitussin, what's the other one? Robitussin and Vicks nighttime, cold medicine. So children buy that to drink it to get high. We know that NyQuil will knock you right out. So we talk about drugs in your cabinet that can be easily overly abused. These are one of them. And to the point where the government felt like they needed to create a law called the PACT Act and prevent people from being able to purchase it so freely. Fentanyl. We all know that is a big topic of discussion these days. Fentanyl, perks, oxys, hillbilly heroin, juice, dillies, jackpot, murder 8, and friend. It is a synthetic opioid manufactured by pharmaceuticals, approved for treating severe pain by typically, manufactured by pharmaceuticals approved for treating severe pain, typically to advanced cancer patients or after surgery. It is almost 100 times more potent than morphine. They include drugs like tramadol and fentanyl. Methadone is also a synthetic opioid. Illegally made street fentanyl is a mix of heroin and or cocaine, and it's a combination product. You take it orally, it's like a patch. Fentanyl severely impacts the nervous system, causing rushes of dopamine to flood and chemically alter the brain. Users report experiencing euphoria and a sense of relaxation, similar to heroin high, but more intense, and it could be lethal. An increase in overdoses could be from illegally made fentanyl. So we know that fentanyl is a huge problem in our community today. A huge problem in our community today. Let me share with you, let me stop sharing this one, and I'm gonna share with you, one second, y'all, because I wanna share with you the statistics that I've learned from at least the past 10 years of drug overdoses from crack cocaine, alcohol, and fentanyl. I want to share those numbers with you. Because again, this this war on drugs isn't something new. We've been battling this war for years. So the Maryland Department of Health has posted a chart from 2008 all the way up to 2021. And they list the different drugs. So opioid related deaths in 2008 was only 132. As of 2021, we are at 612 a year. So in 2008, we would only have 138. As of 2021, we've had 612 in 1 year. Heroin-related deaths in 2008, there was a reported 75. In 2021, there was 107. Fentanyl-related deaths in 2008. Can anybody guess what the number was in 2008? Just take a wild guess.
20.
6.
I was gonna say single digit.
Single digit 6. As of 2021, there were 664 fentanyl related deaths in 1 year. Prescription related opioids in 2008, there were 73. In 2021, there was 136. Cocaine related was 24. Reporting in 2021, there were 200. And they also had alcohol. So 2008, there was a reported 39. And in 2021, there were 107. So as we can see, over the years, there has been an increase, and what we want to strive to do is bring awareness and be mindful of our frontliners again. These children are our soldiers. They are home with their caregivers and their parents, and they are experiencing what their parents are experiencing. My program, I want to strive to give children life skills. Some of them have small siblings at home. They can be taught basic things like how to prepare a small meal, even in the microwave or just with bread and sandwiches, things that people don't even think about. When my mom used to get food stamps, we didn't have a card back then, so we used to get the paper food stamps. And you know, you learn survival skills. I was always in survival mode. So children may do things like they'll take a little bit of the food stamps and put them to the side, teach them how to go to the market and buy things that have a shelf life, like canned goods with beans and things like that, that they can make a meal out of and they can eat when all of the SNAP benefit is gone. Even now, getting the card, sneaking the card, going to the store, buying some things that you can store away and hide so that when all of the SNAP benefits is gone, you can have something for you and your siblings to eat. Encouraging them to simply have the conversation, being that trusted resource that they could go to. Over the years, the phrase "what goes on in here stays in here" is a terminology that I simply hate, because what it does is it teaches children to keep the adults secret, because children don't necessarily, they're not running around saying, well, this is my secret and I want to hold on to it. They hold on to the secret because they are embarrassed, they are ashamed, and most of the time their parents teach them that this isn't something you should be talking about. We want to have open conversations so that children feel comfortable and safe in a safe space, that they can share this and they don't feel like they're going to be ripped away from their family and their family is going to be torn apart, but they're actually going to be supported in the journey of when their parents feel like they're going to go to treatment, go to rehab, and what happens to them later. They should also be included in on the process of treatment. It should be explained to them what's going to go on, what's going to happen next, what could happen to you, where are you going to go. who's going to take care of you, and what kind of support are you going to receive after and during while your parent is actively in treatment, and even when your parent is not, when your parent is actively addicted. Trying to find Al-Anon and Alateen resources in the city was very difficult for me when I was looking for one of my clients. So again, creating this safe space for children to gather with their peers and talk about the things that are going on in their lives and getting tangible resources and help is vital, and what kind of adults they grow up to become. Teaching children that how you see people cope with life's troubles and struggles does not have to be your story. When children see abuse, sometimes they grow up to be abusers. When children see drug addiction, they oftentimes grow up to feel like that's how we cope. This is what we do. This is how we fix things in my family. So it's nothing wrong with it. I'll grow up and I'll repeat the same pattern. The SOAP is actually just what it says. It's to promote clean living, that we don't have to be a product of our environment. We don't have to be our parents. So that is where the SOAP was created from. That's where it was birthed from. My goal is to educate on a level where everyone can understand, even children, giving them the courage and empowerment to speak up about what they are dealing with at home, so that they can be guided to tangible resources, and we can support the parent in whatever decision they choose to make if they are actively seeking treatment, and lobbying for family treatment to become a real thing, because too many times families are torn apart during treatment and after treatment, when we don't support everyone as a whole. Do I have any questions, thoughts, suggestions, concerns, anything?
What is the name of your program? I'm sorry, I kind of came in late. What was the name of your program again?
The name of my program is the SOAP. So it stands for Thriving, Healing, Empowered Seeds of Addicted Parents.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining. Anyone
Hi.
else have any questions? Yes.
Great presentation.
Thank
Super
you.
informative. I definitely learned some new information. And so, no, I was glad to hear about you. I know we spoke over the phone, but it's great to see your face in that, and just hearing your presentation just reminded me how super aligned. So my name is Kiana Lewis. I am a researcher at Hopkins, and my team is really focused on building resources for youth with parents who have had a history of substance use. And right now we've created an intervention that just really helps young people make the best decisions for the circumstances they're in. We understand your circumstances aren't always perfect. So how do we help you make good sexual health and substance use decisions based on what you have? And so it's just really exciting to hear how you've gotten to this work. And so I just look forward to exploring opportunities to work with you, because you're doing amazing work.
Thank you. Thank you. I really want people to know that we do survive. Is it a struggle? It is. It's a daily struggle. Again, I talk about the adverse childhood experience, which is something that I just learned of a few years ago. And I really had a breakthrough moment when I realized that the things that I had went through in my childhood really, really molded me into who I am, some good and some not so good. And that I really have to work daily to overcome that. And I am not the only one. I am one of many unspoken frontliners out here whose parents have battled with substance use, family members that have battled. Some of us come from a long line of family history of alcoholism or substance abuse, and we overcome. And in overcoming, I also felt like, how do I become the person that I needed at 14 and 15 years old? I also became a teenage parent. during the stretch of my parents' addiction. I had my first child I was pregnant at 15. I had my first child at 16 years old. So again, we do survive. My daughter will be 30 this year and she runs her own phlebotomy school. So again, we do survive, but it is difficult. I tell people I showed up to all of my battles sober, and that's very hard. I chose to not use drugs, because I didn't see anything good that came from it. So I just want to be a voice for those in our community who are trying to survive. These babies are out here trying to do the best they can with what they have. And I believe if we give them more, they can do more. Ms. Donna, you raising your hand to talk?
I am raising my hand. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
I want to say thank you first for an excellent presentation. And I was sitting here quietly and I was just reflecting on my own life and how generational curses are just passed down and how I use that to flip it in my own life. So I just want to say thank you for being a voice for us and speaking about education and ways to get out for sure, because we're on the other side, right? So we're on the other side, but it's still a lot of work that needs to be done and we're actually doing it. So I just want to say thank you for your presentation, Erica. It was amazing. It was concise. It was to the point. And the young people need to know. I didn't know about half of that some of that stuff, the newer drugs. I was like, what? They call it what? Because I deal with a lot of young people and teaching cosmetology and stuff like that. I was like, that's what they was talking about the whole time. Okay, that's why y'all was late for your lunch break. All right, I get it now. So I'm gonna have to go back and we need a dictionary or something with all the new slang for the drugs that's out here. So I'll actually be able to know. But thank you so much, Erica, for your presentation and participating in your own recovery and everything.
Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much. And my information, you can always reach me at Erica C. Hamlett, HAMLETT @gmail.com.
You on Facebook?
Yes, and I'm on Facebook, Erica Hamlett. If you type my real name into Instagram, I'm on Instagram as well. If you type in the soap, you ought to be able to find me. In May or June, I'm going to be doing an outreach event because what I'm trying to do is connect with more youth and more programs so that we can create a safe space for our babies to come and just have the conversation, because it's an embarrassing thing. So you're not going to be able to walk up to a kid and be like, hey, you want to talk to me because your mom gets high? No, that's not how this works. So we have to create safe spaces for our children to feel like they can come and be open and honest and get the resources that they need. And again, we do survive. And if you thought that stuff that I gave you was good, listen, I'm telling you, you can book.
Is it the SOAP? SOAP? Excuse me. SOAP.
SOAP. Yep.
Okay, thank
I
you.
can come and give this class because there's some things that I learned throughout the years that would blow your mind about how people are very creative right out in the open and you'll never know. And the only way we know is by knowledge. And I believe that curriculum like these should be in schools. Again, Narcan training, our babies should get Narcan training, and they should have first aid and CPR because they should be equipped to fight these battles that they face every day.
And we're in the library every Tuesday, 12 to 3. So send them to the library. And you're absolutely right. We're going to be at Penn North on Friday and in the library.
Okay.
So we have the Narcan and we're ready to train them.
Right.
So.
That's right. We're ready. That was a conversation. That probably could cut us off. There was a conversation earlier today on Facebook where people were putting Narcan in the little library boxes, the little book boxes. And the lady had asked, she felt like it was wrong. It was a wrong thing to do. And I was like, well, why? So people were like, do you have to inject it? I was like, and this is why we need training, because there are adults in this thread that don't know anything about Narcan. And Narcan is a simple thing you can do to help save someone's life. So because there are not these Narcan boxes anywhere, if people are putting them in these free library boxes, I think that is an ingenious idea. And so what we should be asking for are Narcan stations or Narcan boxes to be out on these corners. And I know that some corner stores and some stores in the communities were they were being trained so that they could have Narcan in their establishments to help.
And we're actually going to put them in the salons now. So I'll
Yeah.
be networking with the salons in Baltimore City to put them in the salons. But yes, they need to be everywhere,
They
on
need
the
to be
on the bus stop, everywhere.
Yep.
Right.
But if we're not having these conversations, then we don't know. We got to stop being ashamed to have these simple conversations. So again, thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for joining me. Please reach out. I'll be reaching out. Hope to see you all at my event. Thank you so much. You all have a great day.
Thank you again.
Talk to you soon.
Yes, please, 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 definitely talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.